HooperCast coming at you with hugs and words and knowledge and also spiritualism and
This podcast has more than I thought.
it's quite a good many things. Hello, I'm Maya Angelou.
You sound more like a really high, pitched up Morgan Freeman.
Pitched up. It's really easy to do Maya Angelou when you're sick. You just sort of relax your entire throat and start talking about poetry. He came up the steps, intrepid as could be, free as a bird, but not free in the way that the slaves were not.
Red fish, blue fish.
One fish, two fish. Red fish and blue fish, but no green fish. For they were forsaken from their homeland, the Greenfish Lake. Freedom!
Anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What?
I have no idea what he's doing. I'm just sitting here next to
This is ridiculous.
Okay. All right. So we got some TV to talk about.
Wow.
Yes.
Hard to follow that intro, isn't it?
I'm speechless. That was an episode in itself.
I'm so dynamic, you guys. All right. Anyway, yeah, we got some TV to talk about that we've been watching. Right, Dustins?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
We do. We do have that.
Yeah.
That thing.
Okay. Well, I have. You want to take turns, dog?
Sure.
Play games.
You go first.
I don't know what I'm doing, Dustin. Okay.
Me neither. I'm really confused.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about a show on Netflix called BoJack Horseman.
Uh-huh.
So being a Netflix show, it all drops at once, the whole season. This is an animated show, and the voice cast includes Will Arnett is the main character, BoJack Horseman, who is he's a horse, but he's a biped. Normal. Just replace his face with like a horse face, and that's him. Yeah, it's about him, and in this world, he's like a has-been. He's a former sitcom star. You could liken him to like Bob Saget, was what I thought of.
Yeah,
because the show was called.
So.
It's like a mid-'90s show called Horsing Around, where he takes in like 3 orphans, and he's like their moral center, and he kind of raises them up to be good people and stuff.
Gotcha.
And just the way he looked, like this hairstyle, like the sweaters he wore, I kept thinking of Danny Tanner. And, of course, the debaucherous lifestyle he leads outside of the show. It's like, okay, this is definitely Bob Saget.
And it did,
yeah.
I mean, even the other characters sort of, it was like, on the show, he's their dad, it's all wholesome and stuff. And then, I think the youngest girl,
it's like a huge drug addict. Yeah.
Much like the Olsen twins.
Yeah. Allegedly. Please.
Allegedly.
So, what I will say this: the first couple episodes are pretty slow and actually pretty generic.
I'd agree with that,
because when you go into it and you're expecting like, okay, this will either be you compare it to maybe Family Guy right off the bat, because they do have a couple cutaway jokes, and then of course like the main character's like, oh, he's an alcoholic, and he's got a roommate that looks like Aaron Paul, played by Aaron Paul. And so it's one of those shows where it's like half the characters look like human beings and half of them are like anthropomorphized animals.
Yeah.
Like his agent's like a cat, but she wears like a cardigan. Like, it's just one of those things where it's a nice little quirk of the universe. Like, okay, half the characters have animal qualities and are called as such. I mean, the anchor on their news show is a whale, like a giant face, and the voice talent is pretty good. Now, like I said, the first couple of episodes are kind of slow, but what I noticed as we went through the season, like the plot of the season is he's writing a memoir, he's writing a book, and they finally assign him a ghostwriter who's a human, played by Alison Brie. And it's kind of about their relationship as the show progresses, and also just what you notice is it actually has really fantastic writing. As the show goes along, the writing is really good. The jokes are good, and they're smart too. It's just a really well written, well crafted, comedy writing, and it's quick the way that Family Guy is. Like, it moves at a pretty quick pace, but it's smart, like you'd expect from The Simpsons. Like Family Guy goes for the low hanging fruit. Like, it's an entertaining show, but it goes for the low hanging fruit. It just kind of goes for the easiest joke, or it builds in a reference and a cutaway. BoJack Horseman has a couple of cutaways, but stays essentially in the scene, the way that The Simpsons would, or most sitcoms you're used to would. There'd be times where, like, I could tell I was Pavlovian, like, response. Like, he'd say, not like that time I went to the whatever, and I expected a cutaway, and there wasn't one. And I was like, oh wow, okay, cool, okay, all right, we're staying here. And it's and one of the other things I noticed too is it is serialized. Not like it's not standalone. You can watch any episode of Family Guy, and there's not really any continuity. But there's continuity. Like, there's a fire in his house at one point, and so for the rest of the series, you notice his ottoman has, like, burn damage, and you kind of, it's just little things like that. The D from the Hollywood sign is gone halfway through the show, and it's so for the rest of the season, it's Hollywood in the background, and no one mentions, you know what I mean? Like, so it has continuity, and it actually has a character arc, and it actually has scenes that are, play more towards the heart and more, it's not just comedy. Like, there's an actual story and characters that they are trying to develop, and just it becomes really good by the end of the season. And it definitely has what I would call the most interesting opening credit sequence. Just the music they play, and, like, the kind of just how they do their credit sequence.
I watched it over the summer, or I guess like August. A couple weeks after it dropped is when I watched it. So it's been a while, but
yeah, I'm a little late to the party on it, but
it's I definitely agree. It's not one of those things. I mean, you could definitely watch an episode in the middle of the season, and it would be enjoyable.
Yeah,
but it definitely has an arc that you follow, and you can actually see this tension grow in between BoJack and his Ghost Rider
and Diane,
and there's real feelings sort of built into the story. It's not just hey, we learned a lesson today, like something like that. It's more, there's more substance, I feel, than just a moral of the story kind of 30-minute cartoon show like a Family Guy or American Dad or something like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of good jokes in there, but not like, they're not purely referential. Like, they're inherently funny, and they're like a slight layer funnier if you know exactly what they're talking about, but they know that they can't rely on that kind of stuff, and so they write smart jokes that have layers to them, so they're enjoyable to different people.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that from an animated show. So I'll definitely be watching season 2 whenever that drops, and I think it's a good show. So if anyone hasn't seen it, it's all on Netflix right now, and it's good. I liked it.
I'll go ahead and talk about Parks and Recreation. I've talked about this before on the podcast, I believe, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. But the last season, the final season, just wrapped up at the end of February. So I've had a little bit of time to kind of accept it and come to terms with its, being gone from my life forever. So season 7 was 13 episodes long. And for those of you who don't know, I don't think this is too spoilery. If you haven't watched the show, who cares? Between season 6 and season 7, 3 years pass. We jump into season 7, and things are different than when we left them, which, to me, opened the door for a lot of really new comedy, and that was really great as a viewer to see that they're not just retreading old ideas, and they're not just, basically letting the formula go stale, but that in its last season, they're able to shake it up to such a degree that everything you've grown accustomed to is gone, which is really crazy for a sitcom, which sort of has always, from the days of Honeymooners and I Love Lucy has thrived on similarity, on familiarity. So for them to completely shake up everything, I thought was a really, really cool idea. And it opened up a lot of cool new character dynamics that weren't there in Season 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. So now we're stuck with this new world and the building of it. So over the course of this 13 episodes, they raise a few really cool storylines that sort of signal the end. Like, is this really what I want to be doing with my life kind of storylines?
Right.
And I think that they're really cool questions to ask because as Parks and Rec has gone on, the characters get more established. Like, okay, so Parks Season 1 was really kind of off, and they didn't really know what they were doing. They didn't really have a voice yet. But when you get into Season 2, especially a few episodes in, you start to realize that they're finding their rhythm. The writers are finding out who these characters are, and the actors are informing the characters that they play. And over time, what happens, and what pretty much happens with every sitcom, is that the characters change. And sometimes they change in ways that don't make a lot of sense, but that maybe the actors were going through similar changes, and so it just kind of fused into those characters that they were playing. You know, because you play a character for 22 episodes, it's kind of like, you know, it becomes you in a weird way. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I enjoyed here in Season 7 is that there was no staleness to it, and they could rectify any problem that they had had. So if in Season 6 you thought, oh, this character seems off, like they don't really have a clue what to do with this character now, then Season 7 jumps in, it's 3 years later, and they can say anything. You know what I mean? And as the audience, you're kind of tuned into it and saying, okay, this is new, this is not what I was expecting, and it's sort of like relearning these characters that you already know and love. And so in a weird way, it opens up a lot of really cool new situations and fixes problems that some people may have had with the show, get back to its roots. Although, to be fair, some of that may have been just because it was wrapping up, so let's kind of, you know, solidify some things. So it opens up some cool storylines. Characters are really moving forward, and there's a real sense of progression and of character arc here in the final season that most sitcoms also don't have. And you start to realize in this season that the characters that you've gotten to know have changed. And like I keep saying this, but for a sitcom, that's really strange. You know, Seinfeld, George was the same in Season 9 as he was in Season 1. That was the point. And even if you look at something that was like super successful like Friends, you'll realize that Ross in Season 10 is pretty much the same as Ross in Season 1. I mean, he has a couple extra kids in Season 10, but he's still the same character. He hasn't changed. He hasn't grown, matured, or progressed in any way. So to see this sort of progression in a sitcom, I think, is really, really cool. And really, really satisfying as an audience member, and as just somebody who likes to see characters change over time, which seems to have become a forgotten staple of storytelling. So it's really funny. It's got a bunch of cool new things happening, and they're able to play, because it's set in 2017, they're able to play with, you know, what would technology look like in 2017, and what would, you know, everything kind of be like, and they're able to take like really weird things, like they can make references like, remember the Morgan Freeman Shailene Woodley feud, you know, and as an audience member, that's just funny, because like, what would have to happen for those two actors to start fighting with each other? And here these characters are in a world where that has happened. Season 7, they refer, I think, 2 or 3 times to the fact that Shia LaBeouf is now a wedding designer. He designs wedding dresses and wedding rings. He's not an actor anymore. And so
no, that actually happened. You didn't hear about that?
I didn't. When did this happen? I'm so behind on the time.
You didn't see him at my wedding?
No. Oh my God, Shia LaBeouf was at your wedding?
Those were Shia LaBeouf tuxes.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh! Yeah, I didn't even know.
This ring is, he actually spun this from gold with his tongue. It's insane.
That's incredible.
I know.
Is it part of the Louis Stevens collection?
It's a piece of history.
Wow, the Stanley Yelnats collection.
Yeah, if it's on the inside, it's engraved. It says Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
The B.
Oh, you imagine the commercials? He went to Shia's. Every kiss begins with Shia.
Oh no!
No.
Oh Jesus.
There's a lot of really cool things happening here in the last season, and the finale is really 2 episodes, and they do something that's really, really cool, and I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it for you just to sort of entice you to watch it, because I think it's so cool. Mm-hmm. They jump even further. So the finale of this show it takes place in 2017, but over the course of the episode, we jump, I think, as far as, let me double check, but I believe the furthest we see into the future is 2035. No, 2048.
Wow.
And so we get to see these characters really grow and age, but just in like little, almost like Family Guy style cutaways. Mm-hmm. Like, boom, here's what happens in 2048 with this storyline that we opened 3 seasons ago. And to see stuff like that is really gratifying as an audience member. When things wrap up, there's still always that thing like, man, I wonder what happened to Jesse Pinkman or whatever, and that's sort of why we got J.K. Rowling's here's Harry Potter when he's 40 or whatever shenanigans that was, which I think have been pretty obvious that I don't like. The
pretty clear about
here.
It.
But here it works because it's a comedy series, and we've already jumped ahead, so it's sort of setting a precedent that we can do this now. And so we get to see the characters grow, we get to see them age, we get to see how many kids they have or how many jobs they hold in the future or what happens. And it's a really, really cool piece of TV making, of filmmaking. I don't know, TV storytelling. It's a good example of it. It was written by Mike Schur and Amy Poehler, and so all the characters are on point. Everything's great, and I think it ends very satisfyingly. And so I would encourage anybody who's still on the fence or still hasn't checked out Parks and Rec to check it out. It ends very, very well. You won't be disappointed by the end. You will have to suffer through the first season, and then maybe some of seasons, like the last part of season 5 or so, which was a little off. But for some reason that I still can't quite put my finger on, I think maybe it got a little too commercialized, like here's product placement or whatever, but nevertheless, the show is by and large very gratifying to sit down and watch because the characters do change, and the characters are genuinely nice. Like there's none of this like undercurrent of cynicism that's in pretty much everything these days.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, people are just good people, and they love each other, and it's fun, and it's just good television, and so I would recommend that you check it out if you haven't already. At least now it ends in a good way, as opposed to just being canceled and then there it goes at the end.
Right.
So yeah, they pull out all the stops here. We've got a bunch of cool cameos here in the final season, and yeah, I mean, it's incredibly gratifying to make it through and see how everything works out. Now, if I had one nitpick here with the finale, especially, is that there's a lot of happy endings in this 140-minute group or this 140-minute episode. There's a lot of and they live happily ever afters all at once.
Yeah.
So it can be a little hard to stomach, like, oh, look, everybody's getting everything they wanted. But I don't know. It's a sitcom. It's probably better off that way. You know, if one of the characters was like, well, I'm dead now, you know, then it's like, oh, well, now I'm depressed. So
yeah.
That's the only complaint, is that maybe everything wraps up a little too completely, and in real life things don't really go that well. But, you know, not all the time anyway. So, you know, But by and large, if you haven't seen it, check it out. If you've been waiting on season 7, like I thought season 6 was pretty good, I'm just going to end it there because I'm not sure about the 3-year time jump. It's fine. You're good. Check it out anyway. So I was very pleased with it, and I think it's very much worth your time.
I got another show I've been watching that just dropped on Netflix like a week or two ago, and it's called Unbreakable, Kimmy, Schmidt. Have either of you guys heard about this show?
I have, but I have not started watching yet.
This is Tina Fey's next thing, but this is co-created with some dude named Robert Carlock. I've never heard of him. He might be like this gigantic like media, I don't know who he is, but that doesn't mean he is nobody. So it stars Ellie Kemper, who people might know from The Office or Bridesmaids. And the premise is that she and 4 other people had been like kidnapped and kept in a bunker since like Y2K, and so like the SWAT team finally found out where it was and like freed them. So they were like in there and they thought the world had ended, and so they just so they all go their separate ways, and Kimmy decides to move to New York and live her life or whatever because she didn't really have a plan for what she was going to do if she ever got out. So it's sort of about her just kind of like kind of experiencing
fish
life
out of water.
Fish out of water, but like fish 15 years behind society, and it's fun to watch because if you know who Ellie Kemper is, you know that like she doesn't really play like dark characters. She plays generally happy or quirky side characters. So as a lead, she's actually really good because Kimmy's ultimate, most persistent quality is like this optimistic sort of perseverance, and this, like you said with what you were saying, Dustin, like this absence of cynicism. She knows enough about how people. She knows enough about. She's been in a bunker for 15 years, but she still knows how people interact. She's behind on like certain references or what a selfie is or stuff like that. But and that sort of between Y2K and 2015, we actually have become a much more cynical society. So it's refreshing to see a character who's still stuck in like this late 90s mindset of this and just her as a character being like this optimistic whatever. So it's refreshing to see that not on like an ABC, but not in the way you'd see it on like an ABC family show. That's like watered down milk toast kind of stuff. It's a creative endeavor that's very competently put together, but it doesn't waste your time with brooding whatever. It's just it's nice to watch. It's refreshing to watch, and they're 25-minute episodes, so they don't waste your time too much. But some do it co-stars a few people. One of them is her. She's lived in New York, so of course she has a gay roommate. And who's really fun to watch. His name's Titus. Jane Krakowski is in this. In this, she's kind of like this, alcoholic, really rich woman that Kimmy works for. I recommend it, and it's another one I'm looking forward to. So, yeah.
Do you remember that Brendan Fraser movie, Blast from the Past?
That's exactly what I was thinking of when he said that.
I've never heard of this, but
oh, okay. So Blast from the Past is about Christopher Walken, who's all like paranoid and stuff. So he builds a fallout shelter in his backyard and takes his whole family down there, and including his like little son. And then come to find out, the world didn't end. So Brendan Fraser, the kid, grows up into Brendan Fraser, and then Brendan Fraser goes out into the world, 35 years removed from culture.
Wow.
And
I must see this.
It's been forever since I've seen it, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time.
Wow.
If I can date it for you for a minute, it also stars Alicia Silverstone.
Oh. Ew.
I was watching Clueless the other day.
You were?
I was.
All right, Dustin, what do you have?
We can talk about The Last Man on Earth.
Oh, yeah.
Interested to hear this.
So, The Last Man on Earth is a series that is created by Will Forte, and also with the help of, I guess it's executive produced by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. who are really on a hot streak right now. And so the pilot episode, which is pretty much all I'll be talking about today, was written by Will Forte and directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Now, their pilot is actually the first 2 episodes kind of smushed together.
Before we go much farther, we should mention this is a Fox TV show, so if people don't get out and watch this, it will get canceled. Yes,
this is true. Fox is notorious for canceling stuff, and they'll cancel this one
prematurely.
Yeah. I think they've done 10 episodes, so I think they're safe for the first year. But yeah, they'll cancel it before season 2 starts if there's even like a whiff of people not watching this.
Yeah.
So anyway, this sort of escalates our modern culture's obsession with the end times, and this takes place a year after a virus hits and kills everybody on Earth. And Will Forte is the last man on Earth, and he travels the country looking for another person and can't find anybody. So he goes back home to his, sketchy little apartment and then realizes something, which is, hey, I can go find the richest house in the world and live there now.
Yeah.
So he drives up the road a little bit, finds this house, and decides, that's my house now. I'm going to move all my stuff in. And during his escapade around the country, he's picked up a lot of interesting things from
famous paintings and
Michael Jordan's jersey,
priceless artifacts.
Yeah, exactly.
To sell to nobody.
Yeah, just fun stuff, just things that he would enjoy having, I guess.
Yeah,
and so he's spending his days doing things like bowling in the middle of a parking lot with cars and exploding cars and bowling balls into aquariums. So he's just, basically what any dude would do. He's just doing that
stuff.
Yeah, just stuff. Just whatever pops into his head. Like, I think I'm going to drive through this storefront just for the heck of it. Yeah. Or maybe I should go get a tennis ball machine that will spit tennis balls at me while I'm wearing a suit of armor, just to see if that would do anything to me.
Or I'm going to fill up a kiddie pool with margarita mix and then lay in it and just drink what's around me until I fall asleep.
Yes, I'll pour salt on the side of the kiddie pool and just stuff. That's all he's doing. I'm going to go to the grocery store and get all kinds of just junk, and I think I'll wash when I brush my teeth at night, I'll wash down the toothpaste or whatever, rinse with beer. Why not? Who cares? And if
the toilet stops working, I'll just start pooping off the diving board.
Yes, that's exactly what he's done. He's made a toilet pool where he literally cuts a hole in the diving board so he can sit on the end of the diving board and poop. And so it's just random, hilarious stuff like that.
Idea.
Yeah.
And so he decides after quite a while, a few months anyway, his house is a wreck because why clean it?
Yeah.
Everything is boring now. There's nothing left to do in the world, and most importantly, there's no other people. So I'm talking to tennis balls. I'm talking to people in my head. And there's no women, so I'm super lonely. So he decides he's going to kill himself. Mm-hmm. And before he does, he spots smoke. As it turns out, he may not be the last person alive at all. So the other, I guess, series regular here, I'm not sure if it's just going to be these 2 characters, but anyway, for now anyway, the other person is Christian Shaw. She is the last woman on Earth, and she's not particularly attractive. She has an annoying voice and a lot of really annoying habits, which leads our main character to kind of feel like he was probably better off without any women. Like she corrects his grammar, makes him stop at stop signs, even though there's no traffic. Yeah.
Or police.
Stuff like that, and wants him to throw away his dirty magazines and all this stuff. It's just a really, to me, an interesting concept coupled with, I think, a good comedic pairing.
Yeah.
Although, I will say this. At this point, our main character, whose name is Phil Miller, is not particularly likable. I mean, he's relatable. I would do those things if I was the last person on Earth. And then when she shows up, she's not particularly likable either. So I hope that as we settle into the show, they become a little more
developed. And
because right now they're just kind of a collection of jokes is their character.
But it's kind of good because I prefer to watch a character like him throughout this setting and essentially grow, because if he was like this, Dudley Do-Right type of character just doing good things in the apocalypse, I'd be like, oh, that's nice.
Right, exactly.
It's interesting to watch a selfish guy, how the apocalypse would affect him.
But that's the foil, too, is that he is selfish, and here she is kind of the goody two-shoes. And neither one of them are interesting, really, in this scenario. Can
I share? This is just I know my wife watches the show and she's watched farther than I have, but I think it happens in the very next episode. Can I tell you something that adds something new to the show?
Yeah, sure.
So at the end of these pilot episodes, she will not sleep with him until they get married. That's another one of the things she does. And he's like, well, the last two people. So they marry each other. So in the next episode, they meet another character played by January Jones.
Nice.
Oh.
And his whole thing is, damn it.
Yeah.
I can't sleep with her because I'm now married to this first girl that I don't like. So the whole joke is that she's super hot and he married himself to the only other person in the world who's less desirable.
Yeah.
So and I don't know if there'll be more characters after that.
Sure.
Or if January Jones will be compelling on screen.
That remains to be seen.
It's a valid concern.
It is.
But this makes me think that there will be, other characters introduced. I don't know if they'll introduce any male characters, which is not a problem, to be honest.
No.
Or if they'll do it anytime soon. But I personally am interested in where this show is going. I'm not like keeping up with it like gangbusters, but I like the premise, and I hope it survives its first season on, a real unstable network. So
sure.
Hopefully Fox will be happy with the fact that everyone on Earth watches Empire, and they'll feel a little more secure about where their money's going and give everyone else a break. So who knows?
Maybe. But, I thought it was a good show. I think it's funny. I think it's definitely an interesting concept, and I'll probably keep watching. Although, like you said, I'm not eating it up like, I have to sit down and watch that. But I'll eventually sit down and watch them all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Dustin, thanks.
Thank you.
Signing off.
Signing off.
See you guys next time.
Later.